Hey everyone, welcome back to Talking Sense. Yesterday I did a review for Promenade in the Gardens, Mason Margiela, and I said it was possibly one of the easiest reviews I was ever going to do for this channel. Well, today I'm here with Serge Lutens, Vetiver Oriental, which is possibly one of the most difficult reviews I'm ever going to do for this channel. Why not, right? The perfumer for this was Christopher Sheldrake. He's a British perfumer. He worked for Chanel, and then he moved over to like a Givaudan company, where he works for Serge Lutens for lots of years. And now I think he's back with Chanel in some capacity or other. But he brought out Vetiver Oriental in 2004, and it kind of flip-flopped between being part of the exclusive line and the regular bottle line with their kind of exclusive bell jar kind of bottles. So the notes, first of all, are dark chocolate, amber, sandalwood, musk, oak moss, guaiac wood, vetiver iris and labdanum. They're the listed notes, and that's pretty much actually that's pretty accurate, I would say. I have it at the moment on like a dry down on my wrist, so let's spray it and see what it smells like on the top. Right, so right off the top you get a really strong vetiver, and it's really quite harsh. In a way it's almost medicinal. It's got like a sort of semi medicinal vibe to it. But really, it's just a really strong vetiver that kind of like fizzes, and it's quite deep and very rich smelling, very rich smelling. This perfume in general is very rich smelling perfume. But yeah, you get this strong vetiver, and then you get quite a strong guaiac wood. And for about the first half an hour, I get quite a strong guaiac wood with this, and I've got to be honest, I'm not a massive fan of guaiac wood. Sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't. In this, it's okay. It stays sort of borderline, that kind of plastic rubbery kind of vibe, like a bit oily, and but it doesn't sort of ever go too far. And by the time you're kind of getting sick of it, or by the time I'm personally getting sick of it, it almost disappears completely. It slips right back into the back of the composition, so I'm kind of alright by that. And instead, at that point, which is about the half an hour point, the guaiac wood disappears and the sandalwood comes in, and the sandalwood in this is incredible. It's possibly, I think, one of my favourite sandalwoods of all time, if not the favourite sandalwood of all time for me. It's a really nice, rich, fresh, woody note, and it smells like wood shops rather than sort of incense or sort of like any sort of like natural woods or anything like that. It smells very much like a wood shop. It smells like you're standing in the middle of a wood shop, but with this kind of like heavy vetiver over the top of that, and it's very spicy, very balsamic. There's, you know, a very slight touch of iris in there, which lends it like a powdery feel, but it's not overly powdery. It's just in the background, just sort of edges in, just this little gentle touch of powder. And to kind of kill a note that sort of ties all of this together and runs under the lot of it is this really rich dark chocolate. Now, it's not a gourmand chocolate, not at all. For me, personally, I feel it's quite abstract. It's almost like a suggestion of chocolate. It's like the idea. It's very rich, it's very dark, it's very thick, but it's very much like a suggestion. It's quite sweet, and yeah, it just sort of works to sort of dance in between all the other notes and just tie it all together. And it smells really good. And it's not, when I say earlier, just a second ago, I was saying how it's kind of thick and all the rest of it. It's not cloying, doesn't get heavy. It's a very light scent, which is weird because all of the notes and all of the smell in general, like as a whole, it's a really rich perfume, and the ingredients just smell amazing, but it's never cloying or heavy. It's always kind of lifted by that kind of fruity, spicy vetiver, and that sort of lifts it up. And it's got oak moss in it. Now, if anyone's watched my channel, you know I don't like oak moss, but I like it in this because it's just a touch, and it's never dominated by oak moss, and it never really smells like an oak moss fragrance. I would say the oak moss doesn't even really have that characteristic of the typical oak moss. It's more like just a subtle hint of it, just to kind of bring it up a little bit and give it a little bit of spark and a little bit of life, and it's just fantastic. And it works so well with the vetiver, which is really sort of rich, spicy, could become really like oppressive, but it's held back by all the other notes, and especially that chocolate really sort of holds it back, sort of dampens that kind of bitterness. The sharpness of the vetiver is kind of held back. If it didn't have that chocolate, I think the vetiver would be extremely harsh, but because it's got that chocolate in there, that just kind of clags it down and just holds it back, and it they just work together in harmony so well. It's blended intensely well, and it just smells great. It's the sort of perfume you just want to smell like over and over again. It's so nice. I say I'm wearing it for the purpose of the review, and it's just amazing. You know, occasion. Okay, so this is really tough because I just explained the notes and what it smells like. In a way, that's quite simple. It's quite a linear fragrance, but this fragrance is anything but simple, and it sort of belies the reality of it, and that's that in terms of occasion and gender, it really kind of ebbs and flows with the wear. And 1 minute you're wearing it and it feels black tie, you know, like you couldn't get away with it in anything less, and then the next minute it's kind of dirty rock and roll, and then the next minute it's back to being like uber classy, and it just sort of flows between those two. You know, it sort of flows between making you feel bad for wearing it in a pair of jeans, and then making it seem like if you weren't wearing jeans it wouldn't make sense, and it just sort of ebbs between those two, and it's just utter class. Basically, in terms of occasion, I would say any time, but it's very classy. It's very expensive smelling, very rich smelling, and it is classy. So when you wear it dressed down like I'm just dressed today, it does make you feel a little bit like I should perhaps be dressing up to be wearing this. And just every now and again it will kind of subvert that by just sort of like tossing in this kind of rock and roll vibe that's sort of like, hey, you know, just wear it whenever you want kind of vibe. So it does get away with it, but it is a classy scent, and I would say it lends itself to being dressed up. You can wear it any time, I say, but I wouldn't wear it to work or anything like that. I think if you wore it to work, you might be being a little bit almost showy. But you could wear any time, like in terms of like casual or dressed up, but just be aware that it's really classy, and you've got to almost make sure you wear the fragrance and you don't let the fragrance wear you, because that I think is a danger with this one, that you can sort of let the fragrance wear you a little bit if you don't kind of own it, basically. In terms of gender, it's another really interesting one, because sometimes you'll catch it and it's like undeniably masculine. It's got these woods and they're really strong and gorgeous smelling woods with this kind of heavy vetiver and like oak moss, and that sort of makes it feel very masculine. And then it will kind of flip between, like, you'll catch a note of the chocolate in the air and the sweetness will come out, and like the soft powdery iris, and it'll feel almost quite feminine. And then suddenly you're kind of feeling like, hey, this is like leaning really feminine. And then it will kind of flip backwards and forwards between those two, but they're quite extreme. Like, it's not, when you say unisex fragrance, generally I take that to mean like a fragrance which as a whole has a kind of non-gender specific feel or something like that. But whereas this is not the case, I would say it's actually unisex, but in a very different way, in that it has very defined sort of leans masculine and it leans feminine at the same time, but it just flips between the two, and it's so clever, and it's something you really need to experience to make sense of. So I can sit here and describe it, but I feel like you need to experience that, the way it kind of flips between the two, rather than just be unisex as a whole. But as I say, I do think it's unisex. I do think, you know, for men, it's definitely got a masculine edge to it, and it has that kind of lovely kind of sweet softness to it as well, that just kind of ebbs in and out just to make you sort of make it feel modern and crisp and clean. But it, you know, if you're a woman wearing this, I wouldn't be worried. I think you can definitely wear it. I think you'd have to be confident to wear it. And again, don't let the fragrance wear you. You've got to wear it. But I think it would you could easily pull it off, and I think it would be really sexy on a woman as well. Actually, really classy, really refined, really sexy, quite dark and quite sultry. But you've got to be quite confident with it. But otherwise, I think it's just really versatile in terms of gender. I think it's the way it flips between the two just effortlessly. I think, you know, it's definitely wearable by both sexes. So in terms of when you'd want to wear it, like time of year, I think it's 4 seasons, absolutely fine. I would wear this any sort of seasons, because generally would wear this in the evenings, to be honest. I think winter and autumns you can wear it in the day. I wouldn't wear it in the daytime in the spring and summer. I would probably leave it for the evenings, because I do feel like it lends itself to cooler weather, but not necessarily cold weather. It's more like just the kind of spiciness of the vetiver and the warmness and the depth of the woods kind of lend themselves to a kind of cooler vibe. So yeah, like at evening or in the spring and summer or any time in the autumn, winter, I think it's perfect. I'm not sure I'd want to wear it like anywhere overly warm and hot. Like I wouldn't want to wear it in a club environment at all. I think that might get quite sweaty and quite oppressive and a bit heavy. But I would, you know, I don't think this is anything to do with clubs anyway. This is far and above the kind of classiness levels of a meat market. So, you know, I think it would, but you know, if you wore it like social gatherings, restaurants, even casually with friends going out, I think would work really, really well. And any time in the spring and autumn, winter, sorry. So I'm not sure I'd wear it to work, depending on what your work is. If you're in an office, I'm not sure I'd wear it. Perhaps a bit more fashion forward industry, you could definitely wear it. But again, I don't think I would want to. For me, it feels like it's a bit classier than that. I'd prefer to save it for when I'm kind of doing something along those lines. The longevity and the performance is insane. So I sprayed this, when I first got it, I sprayed it on my wrist, and it's, in terms of how many sprays you need, not many. I think you can really, has a danger of going like over the top with this. I think it's got quite big sillage and quite a big scent trail and bubble rather. So you don't need to go over the top. I think if you do spray this too much, that it's easily done, and you will end up just choking people out, including yourself, and it won't be pleasant. So dial it back. And yeah, I sprayed this on my wrist, one spray on my wrist, and then I wore it, and I went to work, and I got home from work, and I went straight out, like without getting changed or anything. I just dropped my bag off and went straight out. I got home at 3 a.m, passed out on the bed, woke up the next day at 8 a.m, something like that. So by that point it was like 23 hours of wear, and I could still smell it like I'd just sprayed it. It's insane. I took a shower. When I got out of the shower, I could still smell it on my skin. By that point it was like, you know, I was kind of smelling for it, but the fact that it was still there was insane after like 24 hours wear and a shower on top of that. And it was yeah, it's just the longevity is just absurd. I think it would probably just last forever if you never washed it off. But it's who knows? It's just insane. It's some sort of black magic. I don't understand it. So I think you can probably tell that I'm quite keen on this. I have to say, I'm a really big fan of Vetiver. If you're a really big fan of Vetiver, I really think you deserve to try this. I personally think currently, where I am, this is my favourite Vetiver of all time, and that goes some. I've smelt a lot. I've smelt a lot of like niche Vetivers that are sort of based around Vetiver exclusively, and I still think this is nicer. Recently I tried, what's it called? I can't remember who makes it, but it's an ode to Hemingway, and it's got 3 different types of Vetiver in it, and it's very Vetiver heavy, and I thought that might push this out. Didn't even touch it, not near the edges. Like, it was just, yeah, no, this is without a doubt my favourite Vetiver fragrance. It's just, I mean, the colour of that juice is incredible. Like, this is just amazing. And I think, I say this is definitely up there in my fragrances, in my top few fragrances of all time, and it's up there as the best Vetiver for me. So, you know, that's kind of my review on Serge Lutens Vetiver Oriental, and I absolutely recommend it. I would recommend it to everyone. If you're interested in Vetivers and you like Vetiver, I would definitely recommend it 100%. I would say just drop what you're doing and go and find a bottle. If you're not so interested in Vetiver, that's a different question. I think you need to like Vetiver to like it. I think if you don't like Vetiver, the Vetiver's too prominent. I don't think you would enjoy it. But if you don't like Vetiver, there's something wrong with you anyway. So anyway, that's my review, Serge Lutens Vetiver Oriental. I hope you enjoyed it. Like, subscribe, comments, whatever you want. Cheers.